Like our cheesy mates back in the 80s, let's hope this never stops. It's the Day Trippers. On tonight's emergency replacement show, myself, Phil Casey and Damien Flood are joined on the line by Moley and James Owens as this stripped-down Tripper crew reflects on a massively emotional win over Manchester City, which saw Liverpool remain free and clear at the top of the Premier League. We'll also preview the next step to securing the title, which is Sunday's noon away match against relegation scrappers Norwich. But before we go, as ever, we'll engage with your listeners' questions. Okay, let's begin our review of Liverpool 3, Manchester City 2. It's probably fair to say that the game was as draining an encounter as you're going to endure. Stunning highs, crushing lows. Everything seemed to be lost and then everything suddenly possible again. The question for you, James, is will you last another 6 hours of this shit?
Will I or will Liverpool?
Well, you can only tell for yourself, brother, so...
I mean, I think I'll be all right. I've sort of seen us finished 7th and 8th, and I never thought we'd be here again. So even now, I'm just sort of enjoying it because I never thought we'd be back here.
Are you genuinely in that kind of this is a bonus place?
I mean, less so than before Sunday, I would say, because we're in a position now where we're leading from the front with the team that were the only team that were kind of mathematically above us. Should they would go on to win all their games in hand, beaten and put behind us now.
Yeah.
So less so than before. But I think the thing that makes me more apprehensive, I mean, I don't know if we probably want to actually talk about the game itself, but the thing that makes me more apprehensive going forward is the fact that in the course of winning that game, we've obviously lost Sturridge. We don't really know how long for, and Twitter is abuzz with conflicting reports. Dean Sturridge, who's obviously Daniel Sturridge's uncle, has suggested that he is about 50-50 for Chelsea but won't make Norwich, which I don't think will come as any surprise to anyone with hamstrings. But then obviously we're without Henderson for 3 games as well, so that's what worries me now, particularly with Chelsea coming up, because Chelsea will know if they beat us at Anfield, then it's potentially in their hands if City drop points. So
sure,
I'll be fine, but I mean, whether we can get through the last 4 games, it's more difficult than it would have been with those 2 available, I think.
Yeah. It's a good point, isn't it, Moley, that James makes there, that there's more to lose now, and therefore the tension is ramped up a notch, isn't it? Or are you in that kind of blissfully happy place where we've achieved what we set out to achieve?
I'm more in that blissfully happy place where anything that happens now is basically a bonus. At the start of the season, I would have snapped your hands off just for 4th place. I even probably would have snapped your hands off for a challenge on 4th place and maybe finish 5th. So the way we are right now, I whatever happens till now to the end of the season, I'm in a good place.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but that City game to me was like a dream. One of those nice dreams where your gran, who has been dead for the last 10 years, has made you fry up and you go to work on a hoverboard, and that's what it was like. It was just absolute bliss. Okay, there was about 10 minutes there that turned into a little bit of a nightmare, but then you went back in after Coutinho scored that all was good in the world again. So everything's a bonus for me.
Yeah, fair enough. Phil?
It's great. I think I said it in the last pod on Monday.
Last pod of 2014.
Yeah, the mythical last pod.
Jeez, it was amazing, man. It was an amazing pod.
It was just the most incredible podcast we've ever done. But no, all joking aside, I'm because this was so unexpected. I'm incredibly calm about what happens for the rest of the season. We've overachieved in terms where I honestly thought we would be. 3 more points, and mathematically we've secured 3rd place. And anything from here on in is a massive bonus. And I know that we're top of the league, and I know we're leading the pile, and I know that we've got more to throw away now than anything else. But at the end of all this, if somebody had said to you in August that we would be challenging for the league come the end of April with 4 games out, win all 4 and you win the league, you would have thought they were completely insane, right? You would have, in your wildest dreams, you would not have expected us to be as close to City and Chelsea for a start, and you wouldn't have expected to be above City and Chelsea.
But doesn't context and bonus and all that go out of it because we're here on merit? And we're here now.
No, and the key bit for me is that we're going into this run in with no pressure. As a football team, we've achieved our season's objectives, we've achieved the goals, we've got everything to win and nothing to lose here. In real terms, what happens from here on in is just magic. Up to now has been the achievement of the ultimate goal that FSG wanted within 5 years of taking over. Yeah. They've achieved it. Now from here on out, it's the magic space. And when we talk about, there's something magic about this season, yes, there is something magic about this season, and it's going to happen. But why fear? Why fear the next game? Why fear the actual result when everything that we've done so far points towards us being able to win these 4 games, with the exception of the length of run that we're actually on. But I'm not nervous anymore. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride. It's been a roller coaster. It really has, and it's there to be enjoyed as opposed to be feared at this point.
Floody, that's pretty valid, but you'd be like myself in terms of the more emotional response to matches, certainly during them. How are you going to fare up here? Are you in that nice calm zen place the boys are in?
I have been most of the season because I was quite happy to get that top 4 slot. Champions League football.
You're the reverse. You have been up to now.
Up to now, but now I'm fucking all in here. I'm all in.
I'm with you, man.
The reason I'm looking at it this way is we're top of the league now. We have the points tally. It's not about us falling short anymore in a chase. We lose the title now. It's ours to take, and it would hurt me more to actually lose it that way than to be in a chasing pack and just kind of fall short. Yeah. But now we've got our noses in front. It's like when you have a bet on a horse and gets beaten in a photo finish. That will fucking sicken me. It really will sicken me. I don't think I'll be able to take it.
Yeah, because of the proximity of it now, and you can almost touch it. It's just
so close, and it's the emotion behind it and everything that's behind it. I think we've gone beyond it just being about money and just it being about Champions League. Like, you see Gerrard's reaction. There's no money in the world, there's no Champions League in the world would replace winning this title for him. Like, this is just historical stuff. If we can get over the line, like this is back to like Shankly stuff. It's like when Ferguson done it with United. It's massive for a club. Not just the fact we get Champions League football. It kills me at the moment that I always say Champions League football is taken away from football in general, because I think it's all about big clubs getting to the Champions League, and it's all about if they can get more money, more players, the better players. And we've all seen it ourselves when we haven't been in the Champions League. We haven't been able to compete in the market for certain players. That shouldn't be the case. For me, this title, I'm not really arsed about Champions League. I want this title so bad.
I don't think there's any of us doesn't want the Champions League. Doesn't want to win the league. I think every single one of us would hang our balls on a line to get this league win. But at the same time, like, for me, it's scoring the supermodel, right? We're going to get the banger, right? So basically, now, are we going to end up marrying, or are we just going to have great memories of those couple of nights out that we had together? And like, at the end of the day, whatever happens, it's going to be a great time. Let's not worry about whether I'm going to marry or not. Let's just go and enjoy ourselves.
Well, the way a fella put it to me the other day was, would you take the Premier League title tomorrow and give up Champions League football next year?
Oh,
I for one, I would take the fucking Premier League.
That's easy. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. In a flash, I would give up Champions League.
Champions of fucking.
Yeah, I would. It's just we can go out next year and say, yeah, we're Champions League football, we finished second. I would rather.
No, I know what you're saying, but that's it's in a way. And James, you've talked about this before as well, and you've written about it. The idea of giving up Champions League football when you get it, given the amount of money that's involved in the game. And I know I'm just stepping away from the romantic view of this, right? But just when you step away from it, being in the Champions League is bigger for the future of the club.
I agree there,
than winning the league as an event. But for the fans, winning the league is bigger than achieving the actual Champions League. And I think that's probably the fairest way to put it.
It is, yeah.
James, would you concur with that?
Yeah, of course it is. If you ask me, would you sort of give up the sort of Champions League football that would come from actually winning the league just to win the league? Well, then yeah, because I've never seen us, I've never properly seen us win the league. So absolutely. But the great thing is we don't have to make that choice because we get both. So that's the nice thing about it. But it is one of the sad things about football now, the way that the kind of merely qualifying for a competition by finishing in the top 3 or 4 sort of can kind of override actually winning things. But the reason it overrides winning things is because in theory, and everyone's looking to a better future, it will open up opportunities for you, which gives you a better chance of winning things in the future, because you can have, you can attract better players, you can pay better wages, you can have a greater squad depth, so you're better placed to compete both, on the most important fronts, the league and Europe, but then you're also better placed to compete for domestic trophies as well, because you've got greater squad depth. But again, that's the wonderful thing about where we are. We never expected to be here.
Yeah.
A lot of us thought we'd probably finish 5th or 6th. If you'd offered us 4th by goal difference in August, pretty sure every one of us would have snapped your hand off. We're in a situation where we're 10 points clear of 4th. We're 3rd. We're not. We're top of the league.
Welcome back, fella.
No, I'm still not used to it. But obviously, now with 4 wins, and we'll go into all of those games as favourites. Even if against Chelsea, it'll be a tall order. We're 4 wins away from the guarantee of being champions of England. I mean, what a wonderful situation to be in. And I think expectations will only be raised from here. So we've just got to enjoy it, really, to as great a degree as we can, because a lot of people are obviously very nervous. But
well, clearly, yes, the logic and emotion being uneasy bedfellows. So let's start talking about the actual match itself, then, James, and we'll stick with you here. Our defence, and let's stick with the central area with Mignolet. He made a couple of top-class saves, in fairness, punched reasonably well. Skrtel and Sacco, are they the partnership now to see us through to the end? Past form from Rodgers would seem to suggest that. How did you feel about the centre of our defence?
In answer to the question about Skrtel and Sacco, I would think so, yeah, because, I mean, Rodgers had to pick Sacco away at West Ham, but there was obviously, and we discussed it at length last week, there was the big question over what was he going to do with regard to Skrtel or Sacco or Aga for this game, and the fact that if he's going to pick Sacco to play at home against City, you'd think he's going to pick Sacco and stick with him. And I think the thing is, looking beyond this season, it's been fair, and I didn't expect this to be the case. I think as recently as kind of mid-February, I was saying I thought Skrtel and Aga could both go, but now it looks as though Skrtel's probably not just secured his future at the club, but has nailed down the right-hand side of the central defensive partnership. And it's looked for a while, I suppose, really like Aga might go, and it's probably going to be Skrtel and Sacco at the start of next season. I mean, as to how we did overall, I mean, another goal from Skrtel, that's 7 now, and he scored a lot of them in important games, and that's another very useful thing to have. But I mean, I think Skrtel, apart from the time where he got done by Aguero on the touchline when Silva should have made it 3-2, apart from that, I thought Skrtel was absolutely outstanding. I mean, we got a bit lucky when he's kind of punched the ball clear. But I mean, even then, there's maybe a dark art to sort of doing that and not getting caught. But I mean, Sacco, I thought Sacco did well, but I think it was kind of more. It seemed to be a game where rather than kind of playing against a direct opponent, because when Aguero was quiet and Dzeko seemed to be drifting wide of the box a lot to get on the ball, which is credited particularly to the way we played first half. I think Sacco was probably a bit more quiet. He did what he needed to do, and he did it pretty well. He didn't really put a foot wrong, from what I can recall. Maybe the odd pass given away, but I think with Skrtel was really, really impressive, because so many times he was just in the right place to make the clearance, make the block, head the ball clear, whatever. And just time and again, he was in exactly the right place. I mean, again, Mignolet was very impressive too. Some crucial saves. He was a bit more aggressive coming out of his line. Even when he didn't necessarily comprehensively deal with something, he did just about enough. And again, I mean, there was the one occasion which sort of like, my heart was in my mouth a bit, where I think he passed it straight out to Dzeko in the first half. He was looking for one of the backs. Yeah. Apart from that, I don't think Mignolet made any major errors either. I mean, although he conceded 2 goals, that, if anything, has come more from just not doing enough to stop City, possibly even in the kind of the fullback areas and in terms of midfielders helping out the fullbacks. But they're a good side. They're gonna sort of be able to carve you open at times, and that was what happened for the 2 goals we conceded. But no, I think those 3 did pretty well, really. They put it this way: they did enough against a good team in a big game, and we've come through and won, so you can't really have too many complaints.
Very true. Floody, yourself, how did you feel the centre halves did, and would you say that basically they're the 2 now to take us through to the end, given the unlikelihood that Brendan will switch it up?
I said it last time I was on the pod, that when Sacco come into the game, there's no reason to take him back out. I feel that with any real centre-back partnership, once you get in and you do well, you should remain in the team. I don't see any reason why Jagger should come back in ahead of Sacco. I think Sacco and Skrtel have performed very, very well in the last 2 games. I don't think they've put a foot wrong in both games. They've been competent in the air with the ball at their feet. They've come out of the back. Like, Sacco's pass completion rate is in the 90s every single
96,
game. You know,
believe,
it's
yeah, last
fantastic,
game, yeah.
and I don't think he gets enough credit for that, because everyone thinks let's stick him in because he can head a ball clear.
Yeah.
He's a lot more accomplished footballer than just that. I still think we're weak in the fullback areas.
Yeah, talk to me about the fullbacks, Floody, because that's somewhere where I wanted to go next. And you could say definitely that maybe Johnson took a little bit of a step back, and Flanagan maybe didn't have his best game, to say the least. It's the one area of our team where, and listen, don't get me wrong, we're still winning matches, but it's the one area of our team where we have a little bit of lack of depth, isn't it?
There just seems to be a bit of a weakness in both of them. I said it the last time I was on the pod that they don't like the 1v1 situation. Now, do we seem to be coping quite well? And I thought with Navas up against Flanagan, he would have run up the whole time. He seemed to be doing quite well, but when they made the switch with Milner, and I actually thought at the time this is a great substitution for us, but what they done was they started doubling up on them, and it's kind of hard to knock the two fullbacks in general and say, listen, this is your fault, or these are poor. We've got to remember, we've no wide man playing in front of them that does all the tracking. Like that's up to kind of Henderson to fill in there, and he's not going to be able to do it all the time. Pellegrini was quite smart that, if you notice, second half he doubled up on Johnson and he doubled up on Flanagan every single time.
Yeah.
And they didn't actually go 1v1 and take him on. They passed around them, and they were getting little pockets of space all the time, and that's purely because they had nobody protecting the two of them.
And if you've got Silva and Nasri, they're going to be able to do that.
They are going to be able to do it.
That.
Yeah, it was like they were so comfortable on the ball. Like they were getting it moving fairly sharp and fairly quick. The last three games, I don't see Norwich doing that against us. I don't see Palace doing it against us. One thing's for fucking sure, is Jose Mourinho has spotted that weakness, and he will exploit that weakness if we don't look at that in particular.
Yeah, Phil, that weakness though, it is related to what's ahead of the lads, isn't it? In fairness, not just them and their maybe fragility on one-on-ones.
Yeah. Again, I suppose when you see the same thing happening again and it's the fullback area that's getting exploited, you know that good coaches and good managers have now identified that as a weakness. Be it through the fact that with the Diamond you are a tighter midfield unit, and the two boys who are playing ahead of Gerrard are that bit, aren't really wingers, and not really dropping in as auxiliary fullbacks, or to make a 6-man line when they're defending as they push on. I did think though that the fullbacks performed poorly when all was said and done, in terms of how they came out in the second half, and even for about 10-15 minutes before the end of the first half, we seemed to drop back. The defence seemed to drop a little bit deep, and the fullbacks didn't seem to get the brief, because they stayed pushed quite on and left Gerrard a bit exploited. Because when I'm looking at it, I often see that the fullbacks starting position should really be aligned to Gerrard as opposed to the centre backs as such, and I just thought they were a bit higher than there. But yeah, Henderson, for all the good that he does in all the games, I thought he wasn't very strong on Sunday for 40-50 minutes of that game. He drifted in and out. He did have good spells, but he wasn't at his top level, if you ask me, for 90 minutes. And Coutinho ended up doing the donkeys for nearly everyone on the park, because he was phenomenal in terms of the amount of space and distance he covered. And you know, that was what it is. What Damien says. That's what City exploited in the second half. They took Navas off. They just got Milner to sit in and double up on the side that he was on, and they got joy out of it, because they were able to exploit the space around Sacco, Skrtel, and the space around Gerrard as well. And that it was a change in shape. And credit to City for exploiting it as well as they did. But when you've got good players like City have, you're going to be able to do it.
Molly, if we take it as read that the defence is going to remain as the defence, and that's just the likelihood of it, what about the man that's sitting directly in front of them, Steven Gerrard? Another pretty imperious performance from the man himself on the day, and lots of extra stuff to talk about that is Gerrard-centric as well, with his inspirational huddle and speeches and all the rest of the thing. How did you feel the captain performed on the day?
I have to be honest, I had tears in my eyes at the end of that game when I saw Stevie being emotional, especially in the day that was in it and everything. But what a captain that man is. You could see it in it, how much he absolutely wants this title and how hungry he is for it. We'd all love to see Liverpool win the title, of course would. But for me, more so for Gerrard than even the team and the fans, I don't think there's anybody out there who could deny, if anyone deserves a Premier League winner's medal, it's that man. It really is, and he's been so amazing in the last few weeks, and I really, really hope that we do win the title But as I said, more so for Gerrard than anything else.
Well, Molly, talk to me about that moment on the pitch afterwards. You get the more cynical types dismissing it as an unnecessary display of emotion, with some people trying to take the piss about the fact that there was tears in his eyes and so on. But all I saw there was something that was just massively inspirational, and a fella actually talking sense to a load of young lads, which that team is, and saying, get yourselves together. That's over now. Like, he's on the pitch after the most tremendous victory that you can imagine, and he's saying, that's done, move on. You know, that's just bloody amazing, isn't it?
It kind of reminded me of the old Roy Keane, I suppose, who was it when United won the Champions League. He was inside the dressing room and he was like, I was telling him, well lads, that's it, we've won it, but that's over now, on to next season, we win it again and we win the title again. And that's what Gerrard was like. He saw all the team were celebrating, they were delighted, but he knew, look, we've not won yet. We've only won a game, we've still 4 to go. He wanted to get the team around him and put that through to him and said, look lads, put this behind us. Exactly the same again, which is absolutely inspirational from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what I loved was the picture of Sterling afterwards. I don't know if you saw it on Twitter after the huddle. He looked like a kid that just got all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles sent for Christmas. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it was just pure delight, wasn't it? Just to be part of this thing. It's almost a lack of belief. You're dead right. It was just that lovely surprise. To move it slightly sideways, James, and around Gerrard in the midfield, because look, we can't really praise the man enough on the day. Phil talked about Henderson maybe being less than his usual level. With his absence now coming up, how did you feel the other guys that were in the midfield that they did? There's going to be a lot on them, isn't there?
What you mean in terms of Lucas and Allen coming in?
Yeah, well, let's just talk about the guys who were there on the day against City.
Right.
Let's look at Coutinho and again, Phil mentioned the work rate that kid got through was immense.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? You know, how often in management, you know, managers have got these kind of grand plans, and they might be sort of planning, well, I want to buy for this position in 4 windows time in about 3 years, because by that time, you know, this player will be winding down. They've got all these kind of, you know, elaborate plans for what they want to do, and they'll be tracking players for 3 or 4 years to buy for a certain position in the squad in the future, and that. And then sometimes you end up in an injury crisis and you put a player in a position because there's no one else to play there. Now, I don't know whether that was the case with Coutinho, or whether there was a recognition of the fact that he'd actually got all the tools to sort of play in a midfield 3 longer term. I would expect there was, because you know a lot of us could kind of see the scope for that, and I'm sure Brendan Rodgers probably could. But I think, yeah, Coutinho is increasingly impressive. I mean, he's a very inconsistent player still, and I mean, you even saw that in the game, in the sense that his shooting was very erratic. He had a couple of poor efforts in the first half, particularly one which wasn't so much a shot as a finish, and the finish was really poor. And then obviously he latches onto nothing to score the winning goal. But no, Coutinho was really impressive, and he's really he's always had sort of good, even when he's kind of played further forward in a sort of a number 10 role, he's always had kind of good sort of tenacity and work rate. And I don't even necessarily think it's so much that he's kind of strong, as is that he's got, 1, a good centre of gravity, and 2, something which I think is more commonly seen in sort of what you would call, I suppose, like Mediterranean or Latin American players, which is just that ability to actually just use the low centre of gravity and kind of shield the ball and spin away from people with it. So, yeah, I mean, Coutinho is probably more a central midfielder than anything else now. And I mean, on his day, a very, very good one at that, in the kind of role that he plays. And then obviously, you know, you've kind of, the shape sort of seemed to shift from a kind of a diamond to a 4-3-3. And again, you never would have particularly envisaged Sterling as having the sort of the guile and the kind of the awareness to play in the central role as a sort of a number 10. But I mean, both of those two, you know, there probably aren't that many consistently better players in those roles than them in the league. There'll be plenty who are maybe about as good, but there aren't any that are vastly better, I think. So again, you know, great credit to them, and I think great credit to Rodgers and to his staff, because there was nothing about the performance of either of them that particularly surprised you. Yeah,
well, that's fair. Floody, to finish with Coutinho, and if you want to lead into talking about Raheem Sterling as well, a point that James touches on there is that idea of these players that we seem to be full of, between Suárez and the 2 boys, who can just roll centre halves with, whether it is strength or whether it's guile or a mixture of the 2 of them, and low centre of gravity. And it just leaves you, doesn't it, that when you see a one-on-one that should really be oh well, that's a defender's ball. It isn't.
It's what that is, and we don't see it in kind of in Ireland in particular, or even in the UK, is that these players are taught technical ability. That like they play on the street with these small footballs.
They back their touch.
It's all about their touch. It's all about being comfortable on the ball. Like, over in Ireland, we've all played. You're taught to get the ball forward to the big fella up front and run after it. You know, like the biggest, strongest team wins. In a lot of these South American players and some of the teams in Europe, it's all about the technique. And like it's very easy. Like, you don't have to be the quickest player in the world, which Coutinho isn't. You've seen it. But if you're technically good, your first touch can always bring you away from play, can always create the air to space. And them types of players have it. They have it in abundance. And that's, if you look at the players we have that can do it, like it is your Coutinho, it's your Suárez. Kind of, if you look, Sterling kind of does it, but he does rely on his pace a little bit more than the two lads. Where the two lads can, as you said, roll you quite easily with a first touch. And they're always looking, if you notice, when the ball comes to them, they're always looking to play away from the player. Their first touch is always away from play, where sometimes others, their first touch is nearly back into play a lot of the time.
Yeah. Sorry, Phil, do you want to come in there?
No, we've touched on it across the season, but like the one thing about Coutinho in that midfield, specifically in the big games, is that he's such a big game player, and I think he's announced himself as probably the best big game player in England this season. Because if you go back to all our matches, especially our home matches, the United game, the Arsenal game, the Everton game, Tottenham game, City there, and it's him. He's the one that's made things happen. He's the one that's made the Helen moment, the Helen sort of part of the game to either swing things defensively or swing things in an attack. Like you think of the Flanagan goal and the way he wrapped that one away, which just sews up the whole game for us. You think of all the assists that he put in when he hasn't particularly played well through the course of the year. And for me, I still don't see him as an away day player. But there's no way you start one of our big games now. And we've got 4 huge monumental games coming up. He knows the importance of these games, and if there's one player I'm going to back to be the best player for us over the next 4 games, it would be Coutinho, because the mentality he has seems to be the type of mentality that leads teams on to wins.
Well, what I'll say about him is that I don't think he gets enough credit for his actual is kind of technical way he looks at the game. Like everyone looks at him as a dribbler. Everyone looks like he can pick a true pass. But if anyone watches, when we lose possession of the ball, the spaces he fills in, and that's what's really been key in a lot of the games where we've hurt teams at Anfield, the Arsenal game, the Everton game, even City. As soon as we lose the ball, he drops in as the third man. Like he comes out at kind of 10 role and he goes in as the third man and becomes a midfielder. And there's not many players can do that, because most either want to do one or the other. He seems to want to fill both roles, and he doesn't get enough credit for doing that. Like you'll see, as soon as we lose possession, he drops in beside Henderson straight away.
Yeah, Moley, we're talking about a 21-year-old there who's obviously got loads and loads of room for potential for improvement. But talk to me about the man who's 2 years younger than him again, Raheem Sterling, who was playing at the tip of that diamond and seemed to have the run of the park.
You know, I didn't think Sterling had that in his game, playing at that tip of the diamond. I always saw Sterling as one of these wingers who could use his pace and dribbling and maybe whipping the ball. And, you know, at times he could probably fill in up front. I didn't think he could play that tip of the diamond role, but he certainly has proved me wrong. And what I've been really most impressed by is just his touch of the ball. You know, when Suárez laid that ball off him there at one stage, his touch that he had was fantastic. His composure, especially for the goal. That was 6 months ago. I don't think Sterling could have scored that goal. Yeah. But it seems to me, as of late, Sterling is actually seeing himself as a Liverpool player as such. Yeah. He knows now that I'm a first teamer and good enough for this team. And the confidence is just shining through the lad. I've been really impressed with him. But I can't wait for the World Cup. I think he's going to take Brazil by complete surprise over there.
Yeah, that is a great shout, is the word composure, really. When you think about when we saw him carry the ball forward, there was no danger. If you look at the later moments in the game where Victor Moses and then Victor Moses and then Henderson lost the ball under pressure in the last few minutes and a bad touch and a heavy touch, you never ever suspect that's going to happen with Sterling, because the kid just seems to be composed. And that goal, he was just taking the piss out of everybody. I mean, you've got Vincent Kompany and the haircut model just flopping to the opposite side, and he just finishes with a plan, doesn't he? Hello, Moley?
Oh, sorry, man, I thought you were so funny.
Oh, mate.
Thanks for joining us, Moley.
I thought we were not the bloody. Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that. So, yeah, certainly his composure. Like I remember a few months ago that was Sterling often got 1-on-1 with a goalkeeper, and he just seemed to panic. He either looked to pass it off to Suárez, or he just shot it direct at the goalkeeper. But last week against City, the way he just stopped and just swiveled and hit it into the net, I couldn't believe it. That was fantastic, and it's something he's definitely bringing to his game. And I hope he keeps that in his game in the next few games coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just before we go, and James, I'll let you in as well. Like Sterling and Coutinho for the levels that they've achieved over the course of the season have to be commended. Like they've gone through, both of them have gone through troughs and have come back and have just been so electric to the second half of the season. Like I remember the debates we had around the whole City game and you know, after Sterling's performance that day, and should he go out on loan? Is he the type of player that needs a bit of a loan at this stage? And he's just gone on leaps and bounds, and I'm glad that, you know, we had a manager who had enough strength in his beliefs to put Sterling in. And the same with Coutinho. Coutinho's been in for the majority, but he's been left out at the right times, and now we're reaping the dividends because it's his form that's making the difference when it comes to the Cities and Chelseas and the whole lot. And that's what's going to swing the title for us.
Okay, James, that's a very good point, isn't it, that Phil makes, that basically Rodgers needs to take an awful lot of the credit for the emergence and the continued excellence of these two young players.
Yeah, I think with younger players, it's kind of as with a lot in football in terms of what managers actually do day to day. It can be quite difficult to actually know, in some ways, how much is kind of just the player's natural development, or, you know, the player having a good mentality, and how much is the manager. You know, it's like you could look at Henderson and say that in his, you know, he was brought in by Kenny, and in his first season he wasn't anything like as good as he is now. But then he was 21, you know, and it was his first season at a bigger club. Whereas now, obviously, you'd expect, say, you know, a midfielder to have improved a lot between the age of 21 and nearly 24. But I mean, as to those two. Yeah, because, you know, there was obviously a stage where people were kind of questioning. They really felt Sterling's development had stagnated, and then all of a sudden he comes back into the team and he just looked like he got it. You know, Coutinho was always a player. I mean, both of these two, to different degrees, are always players that were marked out as ones who are likely to be, you know, sort of top level players or something close to it by the time they were kind of in their early 20s. So, you know, I don't think either are anything like Flanagan, where it's kind of a case of almost turning water into wine. But yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing the benefits really here of the decision FSG took in appointing someone like Rodgers, because Rodgers' real sort of reputation, as much as anything else, was well, among being good at a lot of things, one thing he was noted for being good at was basically being a very good hands-on coach, and particularly with younger players, because they're always that bit more malleable. They've always got that much, you know, they can be moulded that bit more, and that was always something that I think appealed to FSG, because they want younger players, you know, that they're generally on lower wages. They've got better resale value, but we're reaping the rewards of that, and but we're reaping the rewards of a lot of the things. I think. I mean, get my words a bit muddled, but I think you know, Coutinho was. The suggestion was Coutinho was more of a, and I'm not trying to take any credit away from Rodgers, but Coutinho was more of a committee target than a Rodgers target. Yeah. Even if Coutinho, you know, Rodgers was well aware of him, and that he was a player with a lot of good sort of raw materials, and I think, you know, Sterling obviously was a Rafa Benitez sign. You know, again, these teams very often, they've kind of got the mark of many sort of many eras on them in a way, if you like. So we're enjoying the benefits of a lot of things. But I mean, certainly, yeah, Rodgers is the man working with them day in, day out. He's the one who's you know, using Raheem Sterling in the number 10 position. He's the one who's using Coutinho in a midfield 3. So in that respect, yeah, Rodgers does deserve a lot of credit, because it's not so much that they're in the team and playing well. It's more the manner in which they're doing it, in the roles in which they're doing it. Because I don't think people would really have foreseen that. So, yeah, I suppose that there are a lot of other things at play, but you've certainly got to give Rodgers a lot of credit, yeah.
Well, that's it. It comes back to that thing you mentioned early on about you can have a grand plan if you want it. And, you know, Brendan's been the first to talk about his grand plan and how they're ahead of the curve. But as you said earlier on, basically, you work with what you have, and you work to the maximum of what you have, and he certainly seems to be doing that. Moley, I'm very, very curious to hear about your ideas on what you may have heard about Daniel Sturridge, because it's gone kind of quiet in terms of any clarity on his situation and what the situation will be for the last few games.
Yeah, well, he had a scan today, didn't he, to see the extent of the damage, and he's definitely out for Norwich. And it looks like he's probably going to be out for Chelsea as well. I know the Independent ran a story today to say that he's going to be out for the season. Like that would be a big blow to us. Now, I know in the last few games he hadn't made much of a contribution. And if I have to be honest, if there's one complaint I have about Sturridge, is that when he's not scoring, he doesn't actually seem to contribute much. Like if you look at Suárez, when he went through his barren spell there, he didn't score for 6 or 7 games or something. But at the time, he was still making assists, creating penalties, free kicks, all of that. Sturridge hasn't seemed to be doing that as of late. And I don't know, he seems to have lost that little bit of confidence when he doesn't score. But having said all of that, of course, he's going to be a huge loss if he's out for the next 4 games. That's a big blow, because the one place where we're kind of weak maybe in this squad is attack. But who's going to replace if we're looking at either Victor Moses or Iago Aspas? And, you know, I don't think any of those are good enough, to be honest with you.
I think as well, just on it, like we're so reliant on Suárez now. If Sturridge is missing, and the whole thing that we're going to Norwich and he's going to score another bucket load of goals, and at some stage he's going to come up short in a game against Norwich, and he's not going to score anything. We've been fortunate that the goals have started to come for players around the pitch, like Skrtel scored, Coutinho scored, Sterling scored. They were 3 scorers on Sunday. There was no Sturridge, there was no Suárez in that trio of goal scorers. And I think echo Moley's point, but then again, there's always a folk hero in title run-ins. There's room for Victor Moses to come on and score 5 goals in the last 4 games. But this it's like the Makeda effect from 08-09. Never to be seen of or heard again. Like even Baby's got more games for United since then. So it's like you don't know what's going to happen. And in adversity springs triumph. So it's
it would, presuming we don't discover Ronnie Rosenthal under the bench somewhere. Looking at what we have going on, you're talking about Suárez and the unlikelihood of that run continuing ad infinitum, but he nearly took himself out of the equation, didn't he, during the game? I mean, he was like a little narc, whinging, moaning. It was all the worst stuff from his game.
I think a lot of this comes down to the players trying too hard, particularly in Sturridge's and Suárez's case, because I think when you looked at them, they were so fired up. I think Sturridge wanted to prove that he wasn't gone off the boil and that he was going to get a goal, and was pulling a few things. Even the one that the Sterling whips across from him, he scores that 3 or 4 weeks ago. He wraps his foot around it, it goes into the bottom corner, and we're talking about another wonderful finish by Daniel Sturridge. He tries to make sure it happens as opposed to just going with his natural instincts. Suárez wanted to win that game more than anybody in that stadium, and what we then got was the mad Suárez, the one that felt that he had to do for the team, because he probably had when he seen the Sturridge miss, he probably thought to himself, or even subconsciously, he's not on form, so I need to score the goals here today, when in fact what he needed to do was take a step back, calm down, and go at him again, because he got lost in his battle with Demichelis, and Demichelis handled him very well on the day itself. And then the silly things start coming out in the game. To his credit, he should have had a penalty against Vincent Kompany, but he should have also been sent off for the dive. But I think Clattenburg called it because the ball was going out of play anyway, and decided that the events that happens after the ball being lost control of and heading out of play were irrelevant to the game, and just ignored what happened. Yeah,
that's fair, isn't it, Floody? That was one hyped up individual there on the day.
Yeah. He looks like a fucking madman running around the place. What I'd say, and I'm wondering, I'm not saying it is the reason, he's right on the verge of breaking records here. I wonder, is he starting to play a little bit for Luis Suárez rather than Liverpool? Could be something that could be aimed at him. He could be looking at that record, and that's why he wants to get this goal out of the way, be the first man to break 30 goals, whatever it was. I don't know what the exact record is, but he's right on the verge of breaking it. Is he looking at this now at this stage and saying, I want this record for myself, I want to be the man that does this? And he could be just trying that too hard. Sometimes you can force things, and if you force it more times than not, you just become frustrated, and things don't come off as normal for you. If it just goes back to playing his natural game, it will happen again from. But I have to admit, as soon as he went down under the Demichelis tackle, I said he's gone. He's gone, and to be honest, he deserved to go for it.
It was very very reminiscent to the Chelsea match last year when he bit Ivanovic. He was building up that
you could see it coming.
The mad head was coming on right the way through the game. You could just see it was like from the moment that he gets the yellow card. Yeah, I was breaking it that he was going to get sent off. I was convinced he was going to get,
and that would have potentially just fucking derail the whole thing. Because if you have Henderson out, if you've Sturridge,
if it was 2 yellows, he'd only miss one game.
That's true.
Getting the straight red, we talked about Henderson, but Henderson getting the straight red, it comes from Victor Moses losing the ball, but we won't go into that too much, right?
Yeah.
But it was
to
a poor
be fair,
touch.
it was a shit touch from Henderson.
But Henderson then, in a similar fashion to we're talking about the lads trying too hard, Henderson goes out hell for leather to win that ball back. A couple of minutes left, just wants to win it, doesn't give a shit, just he's determined to win it, and goes in with a reckless challenge, and has paid the ultimate price. He misses out the run in effectively until we get the new.
He knew it was his fuck up, didn't he? And
the way I look at that second one that Suárez didn't get the card for, if that's against us and there's a player does that on a yellow card, I'm fucking screaming red, and I'm giving out for the rest of the week that player should have been gone. He shouldn't have got this out again. Got that out again. That's the way I look at it. So he got lucky on that occasion.
Jim, you were commenting on the game on Sunday. What was how was the heart rate at that point when Suárez goes down under Di Michaelis' tackle?
Commentating, if you could call it that. I'd say it was more like disorganised shouting. Funnily enough, you pick up on that, and actually, myself and Simon, who's obviously a friend of the podcast, who were commentating on it, we didn't see that. Di Michaelis. Well, see, this is kind of a grey area itself, because match of the day they ultimately concluded that Di Michaelis had actually his ankle. Basically, Suárez had gone over his ankle. Right. It maybe wasn't a foul because he'd actually took the ball, but it wasn't a dive either. And in that respect, Clattenburg would have got the right call. But at the time, we were convinced it was a foul. We didn't. I'm not sure if either of us just kind of didn't think to watch the replay that showed afterwards that it was possibly a dive. But I mean, I've still not seen the replay back since match of the day. Said actually. Di Michaelis has won the ball fair and square, but then Suárez has just happened to go over his ankle, and it's just no one's in the wrong. So I don't know about that, but I mean, that's about as much as I could tell you, because we got it completely wrong during the commentary, I'm afraid.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I'll say one thing actually. Sorry, I'll just say one thing about Henderson's red card. That's the most English sending off you will ever see.
Yeah.
Poor touch. It runs loose to an opposition player, and you're kind of admonishing yourself for the bad touch, and you're thinking, shit, I can't let us lose the ball here because it'd be my fault. And you dive in desperately trying to win the ball, and there we go. I mean, he took the ball, but he took it by kind of, going in at shin height, didn't he? So, can't have any complaints. I don't think there's any malice. I think it's just desperation at that stage of the game. He's took one for the team there. But looking ahead, I know we're going to talk about Norwich. The worry is that you could get away with maybe one of Henderson or Sturridge not being there, but both of them not being there affects who out of the midfield three can play in the front three and vice versa, kind of thing. So that'll be the worry there with
that tackle, Jim, reminded me so much. Do you remember the Mascherano tackle he got sent off for in Old Trafford when he just went flying in? He'd lost the ball, and again, just that sort of that was
a second yellow though, because that was a second yellow, wasn't it? Because he got two yellows that. The second yellow was for dissent, I think.
But it's one of those where you just go, you're determined to win the ball back. You're putting your body on the line. You're right. It's a very quintessential English type player tackle, but he's trying to do everything. You can feel the emotion in the crowd, like that the whole day. Between the game being the anniversary of Hillsborough, the crowd was electric through the game, and to the credit of the Anfield crowd again, when we looked dead and buried at 2-2 because City looked like they were going to romp home at that stage, the crowd came back in, and the chant started going, the singing started going, and really got the players, and Rodgers' substitution and bringing Joe Allen onto the pitch fundamentally changes that whole game for us. It really does, but it's also the crowd as well, and you can see. I know we're going to talk about Joe Allen in a minute, and I'll leave it till then. But it's such an important bit now for the team, is this vibe that's within the fans that we believe. Make us believe, make us dream, and we believe. Now, if the fans know we believe, and I think they believe themselves, the players on the pitch, because they have the fans behind them, no matter what happens from here.
Yeah, speaking of extreme emotions, lads, yesterday obviously we had the memorial at Anfield on the 25th anniversary of Hillsborough. I'm not sure how many of you got to see how much of it with the various coverage levels there were, but a notable feature of it, obviously you would expect all the usual people spoke with all the usual levels of dignity, but one of the notable features of it for me was to see that sort of solidarity expressed by a very articulate man in Roberto Martinez. Moley, did you catch his words on the day?
Yeah, he was. He made a fantastic speech yesterday, and it made me kind of proud, even though I'm not a Scouser, I'm a guy from Limerick, but just to show the two clubs united in grief over there, and arm to arm. He made some fantastic words. And the whole this hashtags going around Merseyside United. I thought all that was absolutely fantastic. You know, Martin is a great manager, great speech, and I'll tell you something. If I was to pick a team to get fourth, I'd love Everton to get it. I really would.
Yeah.
There is that kind of very much sort of mutually embracing atmosphere at the moment. Okay, let's move on then to our preview of Norwich versus Liverpool. Right, with Hendo out, is it going to be Allen or Lucas to start, or with Sturridge likely to be out too? Is it more or less nailed on, Floody, that both will start?
I think both have to start.
Yeah.
I know we've spoke about it ourselves, between ourselves, and I just hate the thoughts of Lucas coming into the side at any stage. I just don't like when he's in the side. I think especially when we've had this whole gripe of earlier on the season when midfield wasn't working, it was Gerrard and Lucas. Whatever's happened to Lucas after this injury, he just doesn't seem to have the energy levels that he used to. You get a good 45, 50 minutes out and then you might as well write him off. He's gone for the rest of the game. If he comes back into the side, he's not going to go into his preferred position. He's going to have to go in and do serious work rate to replace what Henderson's gone out of the side.
On one of the sides of the diamond, basically.
Basically, that's what he has to do. And we'll get 50 minutes out. I don't see us getting much more. Now, I'd love to turn around at the end of the game and say Lucas is the best player in the park. I love it to happen from yourself and for the club as well to win the game. But them players are going to have to come in. They're the only two. Like, who else have we got?
Yeah.
Who else is there? Why do we change it?
Okay, we'll come back to Lucas. I want to bounce that question off one or two other people as well. But speak to me about Joe Allen, because I was very, very impressed with his input when he did come on at the weekend.
Joe Allen's he's a great little player because he's willing to come on and do the donkey work. He's willing to do that, but he's very, very good on the ball at keeping possession of the ball at times. I don't think, I'd probably disagree slightly with Phil, that I don't feel he changed the game for us. When that went 2-2, I seen nobody else win that game but City, and I actually thought that's only going to be a mistake, and it was literally a mistake. If Company steps up 100 times more, he's smashing that into Rose's head, it's unheard of. Like, probably one of the best defenders in England for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, he was a mistake. He had a dodgy game though. Yeah, he was poor. He was poor for the first goal. He was beaten by Skrtel for the second goal. And I remember him marshalling Skrtel last year in the actual games, and then he was at fault then for the third goal. He was having one of those fucking rickety mare of a games. But my take on the Joe Allen coming on and why I thought it made such a difference, when they brought Milner into the side, they owned the ball. They were taking us apart by at will, and I think Alan just brought that sort of cohesiveness back to the actual midfield again. It just changed our shape slightly. We were much better in possession with the ball. We weren't giving it away as easy, because the start of that second half, you might remember, we were just pinging the ball away. We'd stop finding ourselves. So going into the Norwich game, I think playing away from home, Norwich are going to be set up very deep in terms of we're going to have an awful lot of the ball, and we need Joe Allen's ability to keep the ball, retain it, and move the ball around the pitch and pull them out of position to create the space for us to exploit. And I think that's fundamentally why Joe Allen is so important to this game on Sunday. Likewise with the Lucas piece, looking at where if he comes in, I agree with Damien on the 45 minutes. I think Lucas can do a really good 45 minutes for us. But if we start both Lucas and Joe Allen and Gerrard, and one of them get injured, we've no options no real experienced options on the bench for a start. And we're also making 2 changes to the shape of our side and to the personnel. Whereas if you do a like for like swap with Henderson for Allen, because Henderson is out, you can still play Coutinho, Allen and Gerrard as your midfield three, and you're not fundamentally changing how your team is going to set up.
Okay, well, so hang on. So, and then what way do you see the lads ahead of him?
Up top?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that at this moment.
I'm sorry, mate.
I've been thinking about this for fucking days. If you play Coutinho, Allen and Gerrard, what are we going to do up top? Because I'm only heading down 2 alleys at this moment in time.
One of them's called Aspis Avenue.
Where's that kid Texeria going?
You know, he's going to be coming into it very soon.
Just one thing I'll say about Lucas in the side as well. I didn't hit him there. Like, everyone knows I've got a big gripe with him, but what he won't bring to the team, and what it'll annoy me about when he plays against Norwich, is the tempo he plays at. Like, Alan plays at a fast tempo, Henderson plays at a fast tempo. Lucas comes in, it's fucking one tempo. Like, it doesn't change. Everything's kind of slowed down with him. I don't know if I just feel that way, but he just seems to me that he just slows down our play.
I think you've probably been a little bit harsh on him, but I do think that in terms of the weakness in his game is more to do with the fitness level, and because of the speed and the tempo we play at, that's why I think he dropped. That's why I think you get 45 really good minutes out of him, and then he struggles a bit then for the remaining 45.
Moley, give me a more positive slant on Lucas. I know in the past I've heard you speak more or less in favour of him, and I'm not fully buying this 45 minutes crack that the lads are going on with. So what would you think? I mean, would you be
47?
Would you be would you be nervous to see Lucas start and probably finish the match?
No, in fact, if I had my choice, I'd have Lucas starting ahead of Allen, because to be honest, I'm not really too sure what Allen brings to the team, if I'm completely honest with you.
Right.
Yeah, he passes a bit and he's a bit composed, but there's never really any penetration for him, and you know, he's just not. I don't know what he brings to the team. I think Lucas, if you put him in there, at least you might say, well, put him back into defensive mid and put Gerrard up there with Coutinho, and that would leave Sterling and Suárez up top, and we'll probably bring in Victor Moses as well. So I think Lucas can offer just a little bit more than what Joe Allen would, and that's why I'd bring him in.
Yeah, but Molly, would you not be seriously nervous about moving Stevie away from where he's now proved himself after and adapted to being wonderful?
No, because I think, you know, Stevie's a fantastic player. No matter where you put him, if you put him into that defensive midfield, the centre midfield, the right back, the number 10 up top, he's going to do a job for you. Where I think Lucas, I think the only place he's going to do a job for you really is in that defensive midfield role. So that's why I put him in there and leave Gerrard go further up top.
Yeah, fair enough. James, would you just come in behind that as well, and would you have any different kind of a take on the midfield options available to us?
Like I said, it wouldn't be too difficult if it was just one of Sturridge or Henderson out, but both. And suddenly we go from looking like we've got a strong 11 and a couple of good options on the bench to sort of being a bit stuck, really, because you could take Coutinho out of the midfield and put him in a kind of, let's say a front three if you were going to go with a 4-3-3. But I don't think Coutinho's actually had that many good games playing from the left, first of all.
Yeah.
So that's not ideal either. But there's an argument to say that it's better than putting in Moses and Aspas, neither of whom have started a game since January and neither of whom have looked good enough, who, you know, and taking a team which has kind of got continuity and got momentum. Okay, you've rotated Allen and Coutinho and Sterling in and out of the starting lineup, but that's 3 from 2, and they're all very much kind of in the loop, if you like. You're putting in two. I mean, you know, Aspas. To be fair, you know, everything you hear about Aspas suggests that his mentality and his application is actually really, really good for a player who's it's just not worked out for. But he knows he's gone in the summer, surely. Moses is just flaky. So do you want to be putting either of those in, or would it be better to put Coutinho in? Okay, he's not at his best in that role, but you kind of know what you know what you're kind of going to. He's in the loop, so to speak. I can't think of any better way of putting it than that. But if you do that, you're left with, you know, Allen and Henderson ahead of Gerrard in midfield. Well, I mean, the first thing with that is there's not, you know, from those two players, there's not a great deal in the way of one sort of threat to score a goal, although, you know, Henderson doesn't really provide a great deal of that either because he's only scored 4 all season and one was a free kick. But there's not really that, but more so there's not really a lot of kind of, and Gerrard provides a bit of this from deeper, but there's not really that kind of vertical threat in terms of their passing. Now, there's a lot of merit to having a player like Allen, who we talked about before, and Lucas did this actually brilliantly in lieu of Allen way at West Ham, just gets into little pockets of space and just lends the ball off people and just keeps it moving in such a way that you keep the opposition moving, and if you keep them moving, spaces appear. Yeah. So that, I think, bearing in mind, I think Norwich, although they're at home, will be very cagey here. 1, Houghton's a very safety-first manager, and 2, they happily take a point from this game. They've got a tough run of fixtures, but if they can collect a point from a couple of them, they may well be all right. So they'll be very, very cagey, and obviously we haven't got as much of the threat in behind with Sturridge. So the concern there in that respect is that if you take Coutinho out, and Coutinho can force it a bit sometimes in central positions, the concern is that's one aspect. When you've got the ball, you maybe can be a bit pedestrian and a bit one-paced. The second, then, I think, is that Lucas and Gerrard in the same midfield was difficult enough with Henderson there. Yeah. Without Henderson there, and Allen's quite mobile and quite tenacious, and so is Coutinho, I think you've got a bit of a problem where, it's one thing for Lucas to have a good 45 minutes away at West Ham against a team who are in the second 45 minutes, didn't see a lot of the ball and are tiring and are sitting very deep anyway.
Yeah.
Asking him to do it for 90 minutes when he's not started a game since Stoke away in January is another question. So we're a little bit stuck, I think. So I'm again, it's one of those situations where I'm glad I've not got to make a decision, because it looks like a set of fairly kind of difficult options. But then again, you're talking about whether you play Lucas and Gerrard in the same midfield. It is Norwich away, so that, the midfield battle shouldn't be that intense, because they'll probably be sitting off us quite a bit. So maybe 60, 70 minutes of that, you can get away with that, and you throw someone on as an impact player in a wide position. You might put Coutinho in the middle, but that doesn't allow for maybe playing the diamond with two strikers. And obviously the reason you wouldn't be thinking in terms of doing that is just the fact that we've got two very good strikers and not much after that. So I don't know. Might you even try and play, go with four in the middle? You go with Gerrard, you go with Lucas and Allen as kind of wide players, if you like, in the diamond. Coutinho behind, Sterling and Suárez as strikers. I'd probably rather play Sterling as a striker than the other two. He's quick, his movement is fantastic. He's probably got the best replica we've got, Sturridge. So I'd be tempted to even crowd the middle, ask the fullbacks to push on, and then go with two strikers with a kind of a player who will play the killer pass stationed in behind him. I'd maybe do that, actually.
Yeah, well, actually, that sounds like a very valid option, but all I could hear, and all I've been able to hear for the last while, is the names of Iago Aspas and Victor Moses. Floody, I'm very nervous that we might have to include these chaps. Where does the goal threat come from? Like, if we go back to this idea that Suárez can't be expected to get 3 goals in every fucking Norwich game, where does the goal threat come from now?
I'm looking at the Norwich side. It's going to be difficult to know what to expect from them this week. Like, Houghton's being sacked. They might have a manager who just says, fuck it, lads, let's go for this. And you might just go balls out. They mightn't see. So it's very difficult for you to select a side to go out and combat what Norwich are going to do, because you don't know what they're going to do. We actually don't know what way they're going to approach the game. Yeah. The only goal threat I can say is if we tweak our system and play with a 4-2-3-1 and have somebody sitting beside Gerrard as that defensive screen, and then letting the 4 lads go for it up top. Yeah. Again,
the problem will be if that's Lucas, and everyone's going to have flashbacks to how that didn't work in the past.
Exactly, yeah. That's exactly what my worry would be. Our main goal threat is going to come through Coutinho, Suárez and Sterling linking up. There's no two ways about it. Whatever happened, if we've Moses on the left, he's not a bad player. Like, let's call a spade a spade. He's a decent player. That, again, this hasn't worked out for. Like, he's done well at other clubs. Like, maybe this could be, as you said earlier on, Phil, maybe this is one of them games that he can go and make himself a hero. He can put all the months of shite behind him and go and be a hero on Saturday.
Coming back to where I was saying earlier on, you were saying, look, if I was in control of the team and I was picking Coutinho, Allen and Gerrard as just basically putting Allen into Henderson, what would I go up top with Sturridge missing? For me, I'd start Aspas, and the reason I'd start Aspas is because the one thing you're guaranteed from him is work rate, and he will work his socks off for the team. That's right. All form aside and everything, he will work his socks off, work his arse into the ground for the team, because he will feel that he can give something, and with Sturridge potentially being out, he might have a chance of playing in this run-in and making a telling contribution to us actually achieving something. It's Norwich at the end of the day. There's a good chance that he can do something. He's going to occupy space. If he makes runs, they can't afford to ignore him. My problem with Moses is that, and as James said, he turns off. If things doesn't happen for him in the first 2 minutes of the game, he won't affect it. He won't look for the ball. He doesn't look hungry. He's very lackadaisical, and that comes across from all the reports that have come out. They make out that he's been talked to and trying the whole lot, and he still won't. He still won't grab the ball by the horns and run with it. So, if we were to go with the way I'm thinking and be it Allen a straight swap for Henderson, the only one that I would start from the likely squad that we have will be Aspas in alongside Suárez, with Sterling staying at the tip of the diamond, because again, Aspas has the ability as well to pull out wide, and you can go to a more normal 4-3-3 formation if you want, or you can move things around. You could move Coutinho into the 10 and move Sterling out. You can change your shape because he's more of a fluid type player. So that's my logic behind it. Yes, it's not ideal, but look, lads, coming back to this, right, and in real terms, it's Norwich. There's a nervousness about us because of what we were saying earlier on, that this is an opportunity to win the league, and we don't want to slip up in the Norwich match and the Palace match and the Newcastle match. let's embrace this. We're the better team going to Norwich. We are. Look at the huddle. Look at the intensity on Gerrard's face. Look at the way the players reacted to that huddle. Look at the way, you know, there was almost a feeling that if we could get over the City game, we thoroughly believe that this is in our hands. Forget the 10 games that have gone before us. We only see 4 games. We only see the game that's in front of us, which is Norwich, and we're coming like a juggernaut towards Norwich, and nothing is going to stop us in this. And that was Gerrard was more or less telling them. He's screaming at them. It's gone. No, it's gone.
Got a stat for you, Phil.
Yeah,
hit me up.
Liverpool have scored 27 goals in their last 8 matches. Norwich have scored 26 goals all season.
Yeah. You know, and the only thing is, James, no air look. You know the way Ricky Van Wolfswinkel hasn't scored a goal since 1904, right? He'd probably get a header or something on Sunday against us.
Well, actually, that's a nice little segue into the next little thing we need to look at, and we should look at. The phrase "it's Norwich" at the end of the day has been used now 3 or 4 times. Floody, what should we worry about in what Norwich have to offer? You mentioned earlier on about the fact that there is going to be potentially, maybe it's only a part-time gaffer in charge, but there's going to be a change of mindset for sure, and they're going to be up for it for sure. So what do we have to worry about with them?
Watching them a couple of times this season, I don't really think they have much that we have to worry about. I think other than that probably a new manager coming in, he's saying, let's just go for this, lads. What have we got to lose? We're not expected to win the game. The kind of good thing going for, they were beaten by Fulham last week, you know, and Fulham are piss poor. You know, that's going to affect them.
That was a huge loss to them as well. They'd put their eggs in the basket that we'll beat Fulham, and that will more or less make us safe.
Yeah. So I don't see where they can hurt us. I don't know if the lad that they bought off Celtic, Hooper, is still injured. Injured, is he?
Was he on the bench? Does anyone remember if he was on the bench on the weekend? I can't remember.
That's probably the only other option they have. Like Van Wolfswinkel. Looks like he can't hit the fucking net like from anywhere at this stage. You know, touch wood.
Jesus.
Touching wood.
But so the only other option they can go with is maybe going with Hooper and trying to get crosses into the box. I really don't see what they offer. I really don't
crosses, fucking crosses.
Back to the old cross, and they'll look at that and say, where can we get some joy? And like we've all seen it. We all think, well, we get some joy out of Liverpool on crosses because that's always been the way for the last while. We spoke about it to death here, and I'm sure they're looking at that as well, saying where can we hurt Liverpool? Okay, let's get it. We can get a few crosses in. David Moyes still.
Yeah. James, is that a fair enough point there that Floody makes? There's every chance that these guys are just going to get down our flanks and cross the ball and try and upset us in that way.
Probably, because that's what your typical kind of, less so I suppose than maybe 10 years ago, because you've had some teams that come up and kind of play a more involved style of football, shall we say? But that's what your typical bottom half teams do. I mean, they've got some players with a bit of imagination and a bit of panache. I mean, Snodgrass is a decent player, and he's quite good with the dead balls as well. So he's probably one you'd watch out for. But I mean, generally Houghton's not exactly a manager noted for sort of punching above his weight in attacking terms. Well, Houghton's gone, isn't he? And I've completely I've fucking mentioned Chris Hughton before as well, didn't I? For crying out, bastard lad. It's a good Northern Englishism for you there, that. Shit. I know nothing about how Neil Adams has got him set up, so I don't know. But I mean, you can only work with what you've got, and yeah. The famous last words, obviously, but there's not that much that stands out that you'd think, shit. You know, you'd be looking at set pieces, you'd be looking at, Snodgrass with free kicks, you'd be looking at their strikers who've scored about 2 goals between them all season, actually kind of finding form against us and only against us, and that being the thing that scuppers the title challenge. But that's just, I don't know, that's the way we kind of had to end up thinking when we weren't very good, but we're actually, quite decent now. So even if that happens, we hopefully would have enough to overcome it. So, yeah, I mean,
it's hard to know, and basically our caution is kind of wrecking our heads completely in terms of what to expect, and we're really uneasy with this idea of being confident.
The only threat.
Go on Norwich's page on who scored now to actually see what they're good at. Maybe impression a bit of knowledge. I think I'm going to be commentating on this one as well. So
just remember, Houghton was sacked.
I'm sure it'll tell me that one. Yeah.
The only threat that I'm a bit wary of is Nathan Redmond on on
he's playing really well.
On whatever flank he playing,
actually. Has he been in the team, Phil? Because he seemed to be scoring a few goals start of the season.
Jim, he played against Fulham, and to Norwich's credit, they should have won the game. Your man Stockdale had an absolute worldie against him, right? Is
it a case of he'd maybe gone out of favour under Houghton, and he's obviously not the manager anymore? Yeah, and he's only like a bit like Sterling. He's only a kid as well, so he's going to have ups and downs. And given that we've been linked to him a bit, like you'd wonder is there going to be the bit between his teeth, to put on a performance and show Brendan Rodgers. Well, actually, if Norwich go down, I could be available here.
I'm recruitable.
Sorry, can I interject with a couple of things? If anyone wants to know who scored, by the way, here's what Norwich are good at: protecting the lead. That's one thing. They don't play against us every week, though. That's one. But then the other, surprisingly, perhaps, given all I was just saying about probably not playing great football, they're very good at creating chances through individual skill. Apparently, they take a lot of long shots, play a lot of long balls. They do attempt a lot of crosses, and they attack down the right. And this is very binary stuff. But what they're not good at, keeping possession, finishing chances, what a fucking surprise. Defending against skillful players, we got one or two of those, so that's good. Defending against counter-attacks, good at that. Aerial duels, rubbish. Avoiding individual errors, well, we're not very good at that either. So, but there you are. That's who scored.
So in a nutshell, they're shit.
Okay. Yeah, in a nutshell, they're fairly poor and bad at all the things you'd expect them to be, except they're actually quite good at creating chances through individual skill, however that's defined. So, yeah, there you are.
I don't know how that works. Okay, well, factor all that in. Do some sort of fucking random equation and give me a prediction for the match.
I think it's a game we'll probably control. But I think it'll be a bit of a grind at times in the absence of Henderson and Sturridge, and we might play quite a patient game with Allen in there. So I think it will finish Norwich City 0, Liverpool 2.
Very nice. Floody, your prediction, please, mate.
I was going to go with the 2-0, but I think we will control most of the game, go 2-0 up, they'll get one back, we'll be shitting, and then we'll score one late in the game to
open a gap up.
Open a gap up again, yeah. So 3-1.
Okay, yeah, I see it being tighter than that, guys, I have to say, and I'm relying on my man Suárez scoring to see us through. Phil, your thoughts?
4-0 to Norwich.
Lovely. Okay, listen to questions.
A Ricky Van Wolfswinkel quadruple.
Jesus Christ. Right, let's start and have a look at our listeners' questions then. First one is from Hot Misunderstood Guy. He wants to know, what's the worst night spot? Now, he asked Dublin. I just want you to tell me what the worst night spot you've ever been in was.
If there's a few lads that follow the pod will know this place inside out. This is probably not only the worst club that was ever in Dublin, it's probably the worst club ever in the world. It was the Blue Banana.
Boy, what's so bad about it, buddy?
What was so bad about it? Was it like you walked up to the door and the bouncer stopped you? Any weapons on you? No. Well, you better take this. You know? That's how bad it was. There was one night a fella didn't get in. He come back with a shotgun and shot the doors in. One night the guard raided the place and strip searched everyone in the whole nightclub. It was horrific, absolutely horrific. Some of the worst people you're ever going to come across went to this, and you're going to, some of the lads that were there, they follow us in the round. They're going to be all over this. They're going to be tweeting about this. It was shocking.
If there was a league of Dublin criminals, right, their meeting place was the Blue Banana.
Do you remember that song in the late 90s, State of Grace, It's Not Over Yet? Remember that?
No. Yes, I remember it well.
Yes, it was a club song.
Yeah.
They got her to sing that song live there. She got manhandled by the front row. Like, they had to get the bouncers in to get her out the back door.
It was Blue Banana does sound a bit like the name of a club that would feature in the film Chopper, if anyone's seen that.
Yeah.
I think Bojang was actually the club in Chopper, isn't it? But yeah, you can imagine Chopper going down to the Blue Banana, mate.
That's the worst ever.
All right, next one up is from Chimp, and Chimp is wondering, if you can make a sandwich using a bodily fluid, which one would it be and why? Sandwich with a bodily fluid. It's not much of a choice now, but what would you think?
I'm going to say for the lads, we've got to say you've got to use semen, because most of us have been trying to get a woman to swallow for years. You know? you can't knock it. You know? You can't say,
oh my God.
Yeah. So
you know what the right answer to this one is?
You know, there is a very, very obvious answer, and you've just sold yourself there this morning.
Tears. Salty
tears.
No.
Okay.
Bloody semen sandwich. Coming to a deli near you.
Literally coming in a deli near you.
Coming in a deli near you.
I'll have the special mayonnaise, please.
real salty stuff.
Oh, spunk baguette. Right, let's go to Floody. Tell me where the worst place, and this is a question from Stewie, worst place you could take a girl for a date on.
The blue banana.
I want to go to the blue banana now.
All right. Jesus. Kaylin asks, which TV series doctor would you most like to be and why? If you're going to be a TV series doctor, which one would you be? Phil, any shouts here?
George Clooney in ER. I don't know what his name was.
Right.
Just purely because it's George Clooney.
What, you'd like to be George, or you'd like to be George because he gets
the ladies?
The ladies.
Yes.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Perks of the job.
Perk of the job.
Hello, I'm George Clooney. Oh, no.
That's job. Louis Suárez. James, if you're going to be a doctor in a TV show, which one would you be?
Just because it's a moderately obscure shout, I'll say Dr. Cusimano off The Sopranos, who's Tony Soprano's neighbour, and referred Tony to Dr. Melfi. So, hey, without Cusimano, The Sopranos wouldn't have happened, would it? They wouldn't have never made a TV series about it. So.
You're taking one for the team there, Floody. If you're going to be,
I don't know what kind of weird reason I'm using there about a fictional television show, but yeah.
Floody, okay. TV doctor.
Dr. Drake Monroe.
Oh!
Joey from Friends, wasn't he?
Phil, you are out at a nightclub and you are chatting a bird up at a bar, and you realise all of a sudden when you look in the mirror that you've got Sergio Aguero's haircut. What do you do?
I stop talking to her and wire myself in the mirror.
Are you a fan of the Aguero?
Oh, all those haircuts are wonderful.
Are they?
Yeah. They're like deconstructed haircuts. It's like that advertisement for I don't know, it's a radio station or something that's over here at the moment, where your man has the barber's made a complete butcher job of his hair. It's shaved on the side and there's a floppy bit. Yeah. So yeah, I love those It's like I can go back and get it finished, or this will do for a while. I couldn't be arsed.
I have to say, and it's absolutely no trace of hair envy. I think they're shit. I was looking at Aguero coming on the other day, and I was going, "You've got half a haircut, fella." I just thought it was rotten. Listen, you can have any haircut you want, and I'd recommend anyone to look up your man Pinella, who I can't remember what team he plays for in Germany. And it's, if you think Aguero's is shocking, the lad is going bald and he has will-o'-the-wisp all over the shop with a mullet and the shaved He's
bits.
got 4 haircuts.
He's got 4 haircuts in one, and he's also balding. He's bad. He's worse than Zidane ever was playing football.
That's
Shamak, what about Shamak? Shamak's blatantly going, rapidly receding on top, but he's maintaining that kind of mullet like a sort of an Emmerdale character from about 2004 who was kind of a bit bad influence. He's still going for that.
It's hard to know whether you admire Shamak's haircut or you just laugh at the fucker.
The sooner somebody brings a toupee onto the pitch, the better, because I'm all on for bringing toupees back.
Yeah, is it kind of like vanity in vain, or is it like a complete abject lack of self-awareness in this case? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
speaking for myself, if I looked in the mirror and I'd got Aguero's haircut, it'd probably be a fucking improvement on what I've got, because I've got something even more. I only hope I'd kind of like acquired the bone structure to actually be able to pull that haircut off.
Yeah.
I'd probably rather have that.
Yeah, we've all made funny promises here about what we'll do if Liverpool win the league, and I'm going to add on to my later hosen shout. If somebody wants to get me a toupee off an Aguero haircut, I'll wear that as well.
I will have a toupee for you if we won the league going into Newcastle, and you will have to host the show in the King Harry wearing a toupee and later hosen.
No fucking problem.
And your Charlie Chaplin moustache.
That's the clincher. Right, next one is from Barry, and Barry says, if you could have one thing free from the rest of your life, what would that thing be? Just have a wee think about that.
And it can't be money.
It can't be money, because that's the clearly obvious answer.
Free access to every Liverpool game.
Nice.
That's a good shout. Do access to the game, not travel around, just game.
How are you going to get there?
Free access to the game with free travel.
Yeah, slightly changed that. Okay, finally some admin. Neil Poole's We Are Liverpool fanzine is going to be available at the Chelsea game for the first time, and it's going to be an ongoing feature. It really, really does promise to be a wonderful, wonderful publication. Myself and Phil and a lot of other more eloquent contributors are going to be part of that. So get it and support that particular publication. You should also get on to lfcdaytrippers.com. Check out the excellent and varied content on there. And while you're at it, remember that we did this extra Hillsborough Remembrance podcast this week also. Fair play to Johnny Rep for our class intro music as ever. There are 8 days left of the 5 times competition. We'll offer you a chance to enter via Twitter during the week, so keep an eye on our feed for that. And don't forget our joint event with AI, Carnage at the Harry, a live podcast on May the 11th. There will be something going on from 2:30 to 7:30, so get yourself along to that. And finally, your day trippers tonight were James Owens, Moley, Phil Casey, Damo Flood, and myself, Trev Downey.
It's gone. This pod is gone, lads. We move on to the next one. We get it right. Come on!